Alright, welcome back friends. Since we're all spending a bit more time at home than usual, I thought I'd show you how to paint some clouds. Gotta bring the outside in if we can't go outside, right? The process itself is pretty simple. The only thing it takes is a bit of planning and the tiniest bit of patience. But let's talk materials first. For this painting, we are going to keep things super simple. I'm painting on simple oil painting paper and I'm only going to use a handful of colors. I'm also only using 2 brushes, a small round brush and a larger flat one. We also need some tape, a crafting knife and a pencil to make a basic sketch before we start painting, which is exactly what I'm doing here. As you can see, no super detailed drawing, just a simple sketch to get things off the ground and to have a place to start. Of course, no cloudy sky is complete without the moon, so after having sketched the clouds, I cut out a circular piece of tape that I used to mask off the moon. We now can completely forget about the moon and we don't have to paint around it anymore. And then it's time to get painting. My composition is made up of 2 elements, the sky and the clouds. And since the clouds are brighter, that's also what we're going to paint first. I start with the light area of the clouds and I work my way from the orange midtones to the yellow highlights. And then I move on to the darker parts, where I work my way from the dark shadows to the lighter purple midtones. And my first secret in painting clouds is to actually forget that I'm painting clouds. At this point, I don't even think about painting clouds, to be honest. The only thing I'm thinking and seeing is abstract shapes. Abstract shapes that I just put next to each other, which is exactly what you can see here. An orange abstract shape next to a purple abstract shape, and so on. I know this can be frustrating because it takes a while until everything comes together, and during most of the process it usually will look like you totally failed, but trust me, you're not going to fail. The payoff in the end will be so worth it. You just gotta trust in the process, keep going, and ignore the rest for the moment. Next up is the background. And for that we need to paint a smooth gradient. Not super easy, but if you're smart about it, it's actually a piece of cake. And the key is to split up the process into 2 parts. In the first part, you only paint bands of color that get gradually brighter. And in the second part, you go on to blend those. I work my way from top to bottom and then I use a very clean brush to blend everything. And I do that by going back up again. Simple as that. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that when you go up, you can never ever go back down again. At least not without a super clean brush. Because otherwise, you'll drag the dark paint down into the lighter areas and that will instantly ruin your gradient. And after having done that, comes the hardest part. Waiting. Because, unfortunately, before we can finish this, we have to let it dry. And since this is oil paint, this can take a few days. If you're using a fast-drying painting medium, maybe only a couple days, but if you're just as impatient as I am, here's a tip. Michael Harding's Titanium White No. 3. Hands down one of my favorite tubes of oil paint. This white has the addition of a cobalt dryer, which lets the paint effectively dry overnight. And since all the colors in my painting have a tiny bit of white mixed into them, I could come back and finish the painting the next day. This, for all of you guys out there who are just as impatient as I am, is the holy grail of oil paints. I also used another color from Michael Harding in this painting that is becoming one of my absolute favorites, Brilliant Pink. As a matter of fact, I've only used oil paints from Michael Harding for this painting, full disclosure, but Brilliant Pink is one of the most beautiful and intense pink colors I've used. And you will see what I mean in just a bit. For all of you that are curious, I'll have a list of all the colors that I've used for this painting in the description below. So at the beginning of the second session, I go right back to where we started, and I adjust the bright areas of the clouds. Since we've already established a foundation, we luckily don't have to do too much here. And from this point on, things will start to come together pretty quickly. We also don't need to paint over everything here. Instead, we just adjust what's necessary, which usually means making slight corrections to the contrast and cleaning up the edges. And what I like to do here is to use glazes in order to lighten up everything that's dark, while I use thick and opaque paint to lighten up everything that's bright. And one of the last things I do to finish the clouds is to bump up the saturation in certain areas, to really make everything glow. And this is what I use the Brilliant Pink for, straight from the tube. This color is so intense that while editing this video, the editing software was actually showing me that the color is too saturated. I absolutely love it. So in order to make the clouds stand out even more, there's one more thing to do, and that is to repaint the background one more time. With my favorite blue, which is Prussian blue. Doing a second pass with an opaque color like Prussian blue will leave us with a very deep, rich and smooth background against which the clouds really stand out. Okay, we're almost there. Remember the piece of tape that we used to mask off the moon? Time for its big moment. Masking off the moon not only allowed us to properly paint the background gradient, but we can also paint the moon on a white surface instead of painting it onto the background, which would not only mean that we would have to wait for the background to dry, but also that the moon wouldn't be nearly as bright and intense as it is painted on a white surface. And with that done, all that's left to do is to finally reap the rewards of our patience and to peel off the masking tape. And that, friends, is how you paint clouds. Well, at least that's how I paint them, for all it's worth. It's not something I paint very often. Never, actually. But there are artists and landscape painters who really can create something magical by manipulating color and light. Painting clouds is one of those things that is super easy to paint, but actually quite hard to paint really good. I mean, everyone has seen a Bob Ross tutorial where he whips up a cloudy sky with a few brush strokes. And it looks good, it totally works, but creating clouds that look full and puffy and have depth is something that's actually not that easy. Especially not on a small scale. When you paint big, it's a whole different story, but then again, the bigger you paint, the easier things get anyway. In hindsight, I might have gotten a bit carried away with the glowing effect, since we might as well be looking at a glowing ball of fire right now, but hey, artistic freedom, right? And can you blame me? Who doesn't like a good glowing effect? This, of course, is just my own approach to painting something. Clouds in this case. And there's any number of ways you could go about doing this, but I really hope I could inspire you to have your own sweet tape peeling moment. And to get creative and create something of your own with the simple techniques and principles that I showed you in this video. Guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope everyone is holding up during these hard times we currently seem to be living in, and if you like the video and want to support the channel, there's a number of ways you can do so, namely a Patreon campaign. By joining the Patreon campaign, you not only help me keep creating these videos, but you also get access to a bunch of rewards and an exclusive Discord server where you and I can hang out any day of the week. And with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this video to an end. Special thanks to all my $10 patrons and the artists of the roundtable: Cecilia Hautadi Tegenfeld, Christopher Morrissey, Jody Gall, Dylan Goff, Cherry Feline, Gabriella Milner, Lydia Broderick, Kendra Quinn, Samuel Diefenbach, Sanne Fine Art, and Steffi S. Thanks for supporting this channel and for being so amazing and awesome. Thank you all so much for watching, guys, and please hit like, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and yeah, have a good one.